Today, we're going to focus on photorealism, particularly because the most recent Flux model that just came out is really good at it, but also because I think, those folks who are using Invoke to do photo retouching, VFX, product advertisements, this is a studio session for you. You deserve a studio session. We're going to focus on that today. Photorealism. First things first, you got to pick the right model, but every model has its strengths, right? If you have a general purpose model that understands everything, then it's probably not great at any one thing. It's just pretty good. But when you have a really good model that is specifically tuned to do one thing, it can do that thing really well. That is what the Crea model is. It's an opinionated model that is really good at aesthetics, specifically for photography, although it does seem to be pretty good at a number of other things as well. Let's just turn that random seed off, so that we can start really just getting a decent prompt put together. So we're going to see what changes as we change our prompt terminology with Flux, because I think it's really important to call out Flux specifically loves you to tell it a story. It's not satisfied with a simple assertion of what's in the image. It wants you to tell it about the image. It wants all of the qualitative details. So we've got a Viking samurai chef, a dragon leaning over a grill, cooking steaks with its fire breath. I'm going to tell it to make it more serious. The below is a non-serious, unprofessional prompt. Use it to inspire you to create a professional photographic prompt. You may remove any subjects that wish. A skilled warrior chef in traditional armor tends to a large outdoor grill. Flames dancing dramatically around perfectly seared steaks. Okay, cool. Let's take that extra sauce out of there. Let's just see what we get with a skilled warrior chef. Someone said Roman barbecue, my favorite. Okay, so this is what we get when we just have a skilled warrior chef in traditional armor. So I'm going to add back all of this other stuff. Professional food photography. Okay. Looks like we're getting the same subject, getting the same composition. Okay, so let's do the before and after. Before and after. After definitely has a little bit more of like a color grading effect, feels like. The background is not as gloomy and cloudy in the background. We've got more of like a sunset type thing going on. The face is a little bit more legible. The armor is actually a little bit, I would say, more traditional armor. It looks kind of like a obsidian armor, if you know what I'm saying. Overall, I think it worked. We got golden hour in the prompt, which is why we got that kind of lighting effect. The lighting from the flame is better in the second one, somebody says. I would agree. It kind of stands out a little bit more. And overall, it just feels like a cleaner image. Now, this is just kind of an example of how being articulate in what you want helps you get what you want. I think with Flux specifically, and with a lot of the kind of current modern prompt adherence models, a pattern that has been observed is that you are going to get exactly what is in your prompt, but that kind of requires you, in order to get kind of creative variation, requires you to vary the prompt itself, right? Because the prompt is really putting you in a very specific place inside the model's understanding, and you're kind of just spinning around in that space. It's not getting creative. It's not adding a lot of diversity to it. It's really just kind of throwing it around that really small area. And so if you want to get variation, you either need to get specific or just kind of like random and add stuff in. So we've got a couple of terms that we're going to kind of test out here. Camera angle terminology, an eye level photograph, skilled warrior chef. I'm going to queue up a couple of others here. A bird's eye view, a medium angle shot. Let's take a look at what we got over here. This is our eye level shot. It's kind of like straight on, right? Sitting there. We got our bird's eye view. It's a very close bird. That bird's got to be careful, otherwise it's going to get shot and put on the grill. let's just say, for example, a skilled warrior chef with long braided Viking hair. And I gave him a big old Viking helmet, of course, but you can kind of see the idea here. If you specify what you're getting, you're going to more likely get it than if you leave it up to chance. If you leave it up to chance, what you're relying on is relationships that can be inferred from the words. You're kind of relying on implicit context, and that kind of is where you get some of these random, a little bit effects. In this case, we got the long braided hair, but we also got a Viking hat because it's a Viking, right? So we're kind of like controlling it that way. In this case, though, what we're going to do is we're just going to kind of touch up the face and show how that works a little bit. When you are changing the composition, right? When you have a composition oriented prompt like this, and you put the bounding box over a specific part of the image, you're kind of changing the composition. You're changing the angle of the shot. So this might be a close-up photograph of a skilled warrior chef with long braided Viking hair and traditional armor. He doesn't have a grill, we might say, flames dancing. And then we'll go in and we'll inpaint his face, give him a little bit more love. Now with Flux specifically, we've got to be careful about doing too much denoising. We want to kind of like find a balancing point. It has a tendency, if you go really high, to kind of just like re-inject the entire thing. And rather than doing detailing, it's kind of like really overhauling the image. Let's take a look and see if we run into that here. No, we got a pretty decent, like it definitely made some changes, but I think it for the better. I mean, look at how much depth and soul this Viking has. He's looking at that steak and he's thinking about the past. He's thinking about his life. This is like a deeply reflective look. So we're getting a lot of that. Whereas this one, maybe slightly concerned about the steak, but certainly not. Now, let's say that we wanted to remove the hat. We don't like the hat. The hat is distracting, and we want to get that out. We've got some options. The simplest one, though, is going to be, especially with Flux, you can do some pretty cool and easy stuff here, like just coming in and painting over that. And then we are going to maybe tempted to like give him some like really weird looking hair. We're going to try it out. We're just going to do this. We're going to come in and do some of the face. Maybe we'll give him a forehead here, some of this coloring. And we're going to give him a nice little haircut here. Something like that, right? Okay, we're just gonna lean into this beautiful artwork that I've done. Okay, so basically just providing a little bit of kind of a color palette that it can work with, right? It's gonna reimagine a lot of this. We're gonna select all of that and see how it goes. We're gonna see how it goes. And I selected a little bit, maybe too much of the face. I may have like mangled his face. I don't know what that is. He's got like buns in his hair. It gave him some sort of like circlet with buns. Let's do a medium shot photograph of a skilled warrior chef with long braided Viking hair. He wears a circlet with winged ornamentation. Right? He's going to have like wings. Yeah, somebody said the horns might be carryover from the Viking helmet association. That's definitely what's happening. But what I'm doing is I'm going to reimagine that and just show you how the prompt can change what it's hallucinating right there. We're going to kind of inject some notion of winged ornamentation into the image. Okay, so we got some wings there. We've still got our dinner rolls from the previous runs. The wings look okay. You know, we could use these wings if we wanted to. Winged ornamentation made of, I don't know, iron. Detailed wing ornamentation made of iron. We'll try that. And what I'm also going to do is I might take this and let it go one more time people are making really good observations as far as the words that are having this kind of affiliation effect. If we're thinking about what the prompt is doing, it's pulling in implicit context. You know, Vikings have this associated with them, Norse have this associated with them. So if we change this to Norse, he wears a Norse circlet. Viking hair is out of there. It's just long braided hair. And then we say he wears a Norse circlet with detailed winged ornamentation. We'll see how these words, just these tiny words, can change the visual elements. Oh, look at that. Ah, pretty cool, huh? Okay, so I'll do one more. I'm just going to kind of reimagine this one more time. We don't want to do it with the same seed. We want to mix it up, right? We don't want the same seed. We want different seed. Otherwise, we're going to get too much of the same. Oh, yeah, look at that guy. Look at that. So, and he doesn't even have any eyebrows, it looks like. We probably want to give him some eyebrows. How about that? We'll give him some eyebrows and then we'll leave this guy alone. All right, so we're going to zoom in on this guy. We're going to reprompt it because we're doing a close-up. Close-up photograph of a skilled warrior chef. So what I'm going to do, you know what I'm going to do. I'm going to get some of this nice Viking hair. We're going to give him some nice big eyebrows. Oh, yeah. Yeah, give him those eyebrows. Those colors are a little bit wonky, but we're going to leave it. We're also going to come in and get this wing out. I'm going to get this wing out up here. And we'll inpaint that area. I'm feeling optimistic here. Oh, yeah. I don't know what that is. We can probably clean that up. But I'm definitely getting some Hemsworth vibes. You know what I'm saying? I'm picking up a little bit. This is the third or fourth Hemsworth. Go to our photorealistic board. Save that to the gallery. Architectural masterpiece. Describe it in detail. Something like that aspect ratio for this towering crystalline structure. It's rising from verdant hills. I think somebody wanted more of like a traditional architectural structure. So we'll do a towering structure, towering skyscraper with modern aesthetics, rises from verdant hills, featuring flowing organic curves that spiral skyward with translucent glass panels catching golden sunlight. What does it think these words mean when we're not showing it what it means? But yeah, I see what it's coming up with. The structure is way wonky. I imagine if you were an architect and you shipped this to a client, they would fire you. So what we're going to do is we're going to give that some structure, and maybe we'll even use that as the basis of a control image, but we'll fix some of the problems. So we're going to do convert to control layer. We'll do multi-guidance. And in this case, let's just see what we get with Canny. So we're going to erase, we're going to leave the hills, and we're going to take out a lot of this stuff. So we're just leaving those edges there. Actually, you know what? Let's just draw our own building. I changed my mind. We'll just keep these hills. So always remember when you're drawing on the control layer, you want to be drawing in white, at least when you're working on like a Canny map type input. And we're just going to do a loose one. So I'm going to do a couple of sharp edges here down on the bottom. And I'm going to be pretty loose on this. Be pretty loose. We'll do that. And then this. And we're going to turn the weight down on this bad boy too. I can tell you that right now. And really what I'm just doing is trying to give it some ideas of what I want here. And we'll kind of like bring this up to the top. I don't know what that is, but we're going to see what happens when I don't turn the weight down. And we're going to play around with the control weight here just to kind of like see what we might get. And we might want to tune our prompt a little bit. Some of this stuff might be giving it the jank that we've seen. Let's do this. Actually, intricate geometric patterns might be the big problem there. Okay, so we're like making this like cylinder thing, which isn't exactly what I had in mind, but it's not too bad. What we can do is shape this a little bit with color once it's done. Okay, we're still doing translucent glass panels. Still a bit funky. But what we're going to do now, I'm going to accept this. I'm going to kind of fix with the color. Like, basically, I'm looking at this and I'm saying, okay, where did it go wrong? It's injecting color into this that I didn't want. We're going to basically just remap some of this stuff. So I'm going to take this out and push this to the sky, some blues. And then I'm going to take this white and put it up here. I'm going to finish out this building up on top. And basically giving it a raster layer to work from. I also want to kind of like lighten up this side because the lighting should be a little bit more even over here. And maybe we'll make this all blue as well. This should be all white. Basically like painting by colors. And if you bring in, a sketch and then do like the flat color as the raster, that can typically be a really good way, if you keep the denoising strength pretty high, of getting what you want out of the thing. And the reason for Flux being a little bit more difficult to control is it's more opinionated. So the words that you're using, it's trying to adhere to what it wants. And you can kind of see this a little bit. It's trying to adhere to what it wants in the prompt, almost more so than what you're telling it needs to do. In this case, this is terrible. We're going to turn this up a little bit more. We might try depth control net next. It'd be a little bit more effective sometimes. That kind of looks cool. It's still kind of got some stuff that's wrong with it, but I'm going to take it and I'm going to fix it. So we're going to take this render and then kind of blue out with the sky, that piece. Maybe a little bit darker here. And then we'll do a light denoising here. Overall, it's not too off of what I was trying to go for, this kind of like spiraling effect. So it's a little bit wonky, although it adheres to my sketch. Let's turn down the guidance and then see what happens if we do some light denoising on that. Okay, not great. It's decent. Let's see what happens when we change this to, rather than a photorealistic architectural visualization, we'll do a stunning exterior architecture photography featured in Commercial Photography Magazine. Dramatic lighting, sustainable design elements. We got a little bit more realistic with that. And obviously I turned down the control layer, so it's kind of like really reimagining that. Now, this isn't a architectural model. I think if we were to train this on architectural outcomes, it would be a lot better. If you've got something that you've got like a very specific design aesthetic that you want to go for, Flux is almost going to really demand, even if you've got controls, it's going to demand that you have the right model to pair with those controls. Otherwise, it's going to kind of fight itself. Now, what I'm going to do for this next demonstration is we're going to do this kind of like athletic photography shot. This gentleman who is leaning down, ready to run. Resize that just a little bit so we've got the full image there. This is from our friend Pexels. Their stock image photo site is a great reference. We're going to pull this in as, well, let's see what happens with the canny, see what we get. Now I'm going to do depth, because look at this guy's pants. It has no idea what it's looking at over here. If I did that, it would be a disaster. We're going to do depth. I'm going to do depth. And we're going to pull out the depth of this gentleman in his pose. right? Oh, beautiful. Okay. And then we're going to, just because we've got the image, we're going to generate a prompt from the image and then change it, right? So we're kind of seeing the descriptive language that comes out of the LLM looking at this. And then we're going to kind of like retexture it. Young African American male athlete is positioned in a classic sprinter starting stance. So this is what I'm keying off of here, right? Classic sprinter starting stance on a professional running track. Let's see what we can do here to change the vibe of this. It's got all of his clothes. The subject is wearing a form-fitting. Let's change this. Let's get really out there too. We're going to say form, not form-fitting, a red hoodie, denim shorts, baggy denim shorts, dirty skating sneakers, crisp, high contrast photographic style. Just retexture it with this depth map and change some of these descriptors. I want to keep that same shape, want to keep that same position, but we're kind of like using that in a loose way. Not sure that those are skating shoes, but they are dirty. Denim shorts. He's got his red hoodie. We've got our face over here. So we can change it. Now let's see if we can actually do a bigger change. A woman with long curly hair in a classic sprinter starting stance. Now, this one combats the control image pretty significantly, right? We're saying is a woman with long curly hair. How is it going to try to make sense of that? We're going to find out. We're going to find out. And then we're going to kind of play around with the weights and see how we can like map it on there. I think this kind of shows you, though, this is not controlling so much as providing kind of like a visual anchor for things. And the more that your prompt aligns with that anchor, and the more that the model aligns, the model's understanding of that prompt aligns with that control anchor, the more you're going to get what you're asking for. I think it did okay. You know, we've got it. I mean, it clearly did not control the generation. Now let's compare this with Stable Diffusion. Let's compare this with Stable Diffusion and just see what we get. We're going to do depth map. Just go ahead and invoke and see what we get. Now with SDXL, it is rigid control. This is what I want. This is exactly what I want. And you get very detailed control, even when it doesn't make sense at all. We got problems here. We got some problems. I did not change the prompt. It's okay. I'm not expecting the prompt to like magically work. But what I wanted to kind of call out is you can see the difference in the degree of precision with SDXL and Flux. Someone's calling out what I wanted to call out. This back leg is really messed up with SDXL. But you can see that's exactly what was in the depth image, right? And the reason why is if we look at that original image, those were the shorts. Those were the shorts that were inside of that original image. And so it's trying to make sense of it. But in this case, the control image is winning out, right? SDXL is really enforcing that control. It's like, you don't know what to make sense of it. You don't know how to make sense of this. That's okay. We're just going to texture it, right? In this case, it should be leg. So we'll texture that weird blocky area with leg, right? And that's where we get this big block. Hair is not long and curly. It's trying to kind of texture this shape as best it can with that, but it's not doing a great job. Everything matches. Now we compare that to what we got out of Flux, and we can see that Flux is trying to kind of like fit things to the shape. So when you're using Flux, you're going to bias towards things that make sense to the prompt. The prompt is going to have more influence. It's going to try to adhere to the prompt more. What that means, and this is kind of something I alluded to earlier on, when you're using control nets, SDXL is going to be a much stricter adherence. If you are an artist, if you have a very specific vision, if you're a designer, right, and you want it to be exactly that, you're going to find that adheres better in SDXL. Flux gives you some freedom and will bias towards coherence. That is it for today's stream. Hopefully you picked up some photorealism tips and tricks. Somebody commented on the lack of pandas on today's stream. It is because we did so many last time. See you all next time. Have a good weekend, everybody. See you soon.